In this video, we will summarize many of the concepts of the adaptive and innate immune response by discussing both conjugate vaccines and adjuvants. We will work through the rationale behind development of vaccinations and will use this to discover why conjugates and adjuvants are sometimes essential. Vaccination is the process of preventing future infection by exposing the immune system to the tools it needs to generate an immune response in the future. In its purest form, vaccination is the manipulation of the immune system so that it recognizes future pathogens and toxins before they become harmful. In traditional killed and attenuated vaccines, a form of the pathogen is exposed to the immune system, usually through injection. This activates the classic immune response we have discussed in the first several videos of the series. However, in this video we will discuss advanced manipulation of the immune system with conjugates and adjuvants. Sometimes, it is simply not possible to inject someone with a pathogen. As an example, there is a bacteria, Haemophilus influenza B, which contains a non-protein capsule that causes epiglottitis. To make someone immune to this pathogen, the goal is to generate antibodies against the capsule so that it is opsonized and cannot infect the host. Okay, so if we give an injection of the capsule to a person, what happens? Well, there will likely be B cells which can react to the capsule. That's a good thing. The groundwork for developing antibodies is present. But what do we need to activate B cells? Let's think back to the two-switch analogy. We need first a B cell receptor. Okay, check. And the second thing we need is a co-activator. This comes from T cells. Ah, yes. To get full B cell response, CD4 T cells are necessary. Okay, how do we get this? Well, if we recall, CD4 T cells use MHC class II, and MHC class II binds peptides. Our Haemophilus capsule is a polysaccharide and does not contain protein. As it currently sits, the T cells will not be activated. So what can we do? Well, we can add a protein to the mix. You may be wondering, just any protein? The answer is you can add almost any protein that binds MHC class II and activates T cells to respond. Recall that in the adaptive immune activation video, I mentioned that the switches of activation were independent events. Therefore, the activation of the T cell is needed for the B cells to be activated, but the T cell activation does not need to be related to what the B cell's receptor is detecting. The T cells just need to be active. To accomplish this, very immunogenic proteins like outer membrane proteins and toxin proteins have been used. There is still one complication, however. Recall that the pairing of the T cells and the B cells in the lymph node required expression of an immunogenic protein on the B cell surface MHC class II. So, to get this conjugate pair to form in the lymph node, the B cell must somehow express the peptide that was used to activate the T cell on the B cell's MHC class II. This is simply done by pairing the immunogenic protein to the polysaccharide that the B cell is reacting to. This way, when a B cell endocytoses its receptor and expresses the contents on MHC class II, the immunogenic protein will be present. Thus, a conjugate vaccine is born, the polysaccharide target, which is paired to an immunogenic protein. Okay, if you were listening closely, you may have noticed that I never mentioned anything about an adjuvant. To discuss adjuvants, let's return to the vaccine we just made for Haemophilus. We paired an immunogenic protein with the target polysaccharide capsule, and voila, we had a vaccine. However, we find when we inject a person with this, we still don't develop strong immunity. As we scratch our heads and consider what we did wrong, we retrace the pathway of immune activation. We want a B cell response for the antibodies. To get this, we need both switches active. The B cell receptor reacts to the antigen, so switch 1 is on, and we included protein for T cells, so switch 2 should also be on. Or is it? If we need T cell activity, we also need to think about what is needed for T cell activation. Once more, let's look at our activation switches. We have a protein that T cells react to, so switch 1 is on. But wait a minute, we have forgotten about the second switch for T cells. T cells require coactivation. Okay, how can we turn the switch on? Well, we need to trace the coactivation back to its start and realize that macrophages are in charge of coactivation. To turn on coactivation, we need macrophages and dendritic cells to be active. How might we achieve this? The answer is simple. We look at compounds that are known to stimulate the innate response. Some of the more common adjuvants are alum, MF59, and ASO4. The names are not important. What is important, however, is knowing that adjuvants activate the innate immune response so that there is complete coactivation of T cells from macrophages and dendritic cells. With the addition of an adjuvant, we have full activation of T cells and our vaccine is complete. Finally, we are finished and successfully created Haemophilus vaccine from the ground up. When presented with a problem in the immune system, try using this approach of what would I need for blank to occur, or what would happen if blank, to reason through the steps of the immune system. There is often a logical progression of activity from start to finish. As you move into the immune system pathology, keep this in mind and try reasoning through what would happen in pathways if a protein were lost or if a protein were activated. Often, when you use the sequence of the immune system as your guide, you will be surprised that your prediction of what would happen is exactly what happens in a disease. I wish you all the absolute best, and I hope these videos were helpful.